how do we make sure, and although that sounds a somewhat negative thing, not that how do we make sure our children don't become Malchei Kabbalah, but how do we understand what the challenge of Chinuch is, and how we can use this opportunity to, Mitzvah Hashem, get back to Gan Eden, to get back to what we're supposed to be doing, to understand where we are and where we're supposed to be. So here's the problem, and this is a reality. Rav Shach said this years ago. Today, a door is 2 years. And everybody knows this. When I talk to students and I say to them, take a look at kids 2 years younger than you, and they say to me, I would never have done that. But this is a rapid deterioration that's taking place that is so powerful that before you can find your bearings, everything has changed. By the time you figure out the rules, they change the game. You know, we don't even know what's going on anymore. For us to be able to keep up with what's happening is so unbelievable. When I was growing up, I can't speak for everybody here, when I was growing up, there was no such a concept as a child saying to their parents, no. Not twice, anyway. You know what I'm saying? I can't even picture such a thing. My father would say to me, I want you to do such a thing, and I'd go, no. I'm saying it now. It's 40, 50 years later, and I'm still shaking. You know what I mean? I'm going to tell my father, no? And it was a book about a terrible case of child abuse in California, and after he got married and had children, his teenage son read, and the terrible things that his mother did to him. And he says, Dad, why didn't you tell her no? I said, you don't understand. There was no such a concept. You never told your parents no. It didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter how terrible it was. There was no such a thing. My parents would tell me to do something. I didn't want to. There was one option I had, if they weren't watching too closely. I could mumble under my breath to myself. I'd walk around going, my mother would say, what'd you say? Nothing. Things I'm talking to myself. That was about it. That was about as much latitude as you had. Today, all the chinuch experts tell us, you can't say anything to your kids. My kids say things to me, I'm still mumbling under my breath. I never got the chance where I get to do anything. but what's the problem? Yeah? Oh gosh, I don't know if you ever got this when you were growing up. Father would tell me, anytime you don't like it, there's the door, you can leave. Try that today. Kid says, bye. Wait a second, where do you think you're going? Hey, I got places to go. And they do. We had no place to go. My mother tells a story when I ran away from home. I don't remember it, but my mother remembers a lot of stories that never happened. So, she tells me, oh, you ran away from home, I said, oh, really? I said, what happened? He goes, look, you said, that's it, I'm leaving. You ran away from home, and eventually you came home. And I said, well, what did I say? He says, well, you said I couldn't cross the street. So what was the point, But there wasn't that concept. It wasn't accepted in society. There's no such a thing. And we have a situation now. I just had this conversation at a chasana 2 days ago, where a parent said to me, what my father would have said. I could just see my father saying this, And he says, oh, my kids wanted me to put another line, and I'm not going to put another line, and we're not going to have any phones, and that, and tell them not to talk on the phone. I said, how's it? I said, did you ever hear of kosher phones? Do you understand what the implicit message of kosher phones are? That every kid is entitled to have a phone. We just have to put a hashgacha on it. But everybody has to have a phone. And I have a phone? So, okay, now let's say you all have reasonable children. Right? Let's say we all have reasonable children, right? Then I guess it could possibly work. But here, I have a house of screaming maniacs. I need the phone! I have to study for a test! I need the phone! I have to set up something for tomorrow! I need the phone! No, I need the phone! No, I need the phone! If you're going to try to, sit down and judge this situation, decide who really needs the phone, etc., it doesn't matter. Everyone's going to hate you. You know what I mean? There's no way to solve this problem. So one of my your kids come and say, everybody has a phone. I'm the only one without a phone. Don't you care about me? I'm going to be going out at night alone. What if something happens to me? Chas v'shalom. You won't even know. And you're thinking to yourself, well, the kid's got a point, you know? It's like they go out with a friend, you're like, you know the friend's cell phone number? At least I can call them in case anything happens. And it's like, so there was a concept, there was a time. I still remember my father. I still tremble at the thought of calling information. You know what I mean? For a number. You take the phone book and look it up, you're going to spend 10 cents calling information, you know? That's for sure. You look up that number, you get a phone book, even though you don't know the person's name, where they live, or anything. You look it up, and I want you calling information, wasting 10 cents today. I heard the Torah Rabbi say it, and he says, you're wasting your time when you try to talk to kids about what I had. I told my kids this once. I heard about Yerushalmi. And Yerushalmi told the story. He says, when I was a kid, he says, for a Shabbos treat, we used to get 3 shkedei marak. My father had a bag, we'd all line up, and we'd give 3 shkedei marak, you know. Now, I have been in homes where the bag of shkedei marak tumbles over onto the floor, and nobody thinks twice about it. Sweep it up, throw it away, rip open another bag. You know what I mean? You ever see kids sometimes when they put pasta into the pot, they rip it open, half of it goes on the floor, flies all over the place, because you've got plenty of it. You've got plenty. Oh, Hashem. And every kid, all he does is feel denied. I'll never forget the vinegar scandal. I don't know if anybody remembers this. I was in America in the 1980s, the vinegar scandal. Remember the vinegar scandal? It was unbelievable. They suddenly found out that there was a good hashkacha that was giving a hashkacha to vinegar that was, well, technically not kosher. And every Kamisha product was using this vinegar, you know, and they had set up a special vinegar hotline, and what product has vinegar, what's going to be. Anyway, I was speaking to a mashgiach then, and he says to me, you know why this happens? Because no kid in America is hungry. Every kid is starving. Kid comes home, Mom, I'm starving. There's nothing to eat. I can't speak for every place, because I'm sure there are places where parents are more successful than where I live. But, you know, I don't know, at some point eating became an activity. You know, when you're bored, you know, let's make popcorn, let's make this, let's make something, let's eat, you know, and there's constant stuff going, okay, so I have a kid who is Baruch Hashem and Cheder, you know, and he's in Mechina, he's 5 years old. Everybody thinks I'm his grandfather. It's very nice, you know. I understand I've got 3 grandchildren who are older than him, so, you know, but, you know, every day he comes home, he's got another pekola, he's got another candy, he's got another this and that. This is how the kids live. And how they are. There's no such a thing as, you know, anticipation. I have to have it. And the Torah Rebbe says, he says, you can complain about it, but that's the reality. The world has changed. I don't think for the better. Our kids are exposed to stuff that we weren't exposed to, and I'm talking about people who didn't grow up in the yeshivish atmosphere. You know what kids see and hear about? Just from other people going around it. There's so much out there, and there's no walls you can build that are big enough to be able to keep it out unless you move off to an island someplace. It's unbelievable. It's every place. What kids are exposed to, what kids have to put up with. And so the world's different. And we can complain about it, you know, but I told this one parent when we were talking about this, you know, and how times have changed. I said the famous story of the Chazon Ish, where they went over to a cheder that would teach into Ivrit instead of into Yiddish, and people came to complain, and he says, no, we lost that battle. Now you got to fight the battle that exists. You want to still fight the last Dor's battle? It's over. You're going to fight to try to preserve Yiddish, you know what I mean, and ignore the fact that more and more kids are speaking Ivrit. You're going to lose. It's just a reality. It's unfortunate. What used to work doesn't work anymore. And you can try. And I know parents who try. And the tales of people who have failed are much more than the tales of the people who succeeded. You can bang your head against the wall. It's not like it used to be, where a person can come in and say to their kids, I hold, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to be, and finish. Which is not me speaking. All the Gedolei Torah say this. The times have changed. There was a seminar where the heads of the seminar, you know, had a whole meeting with Stein, and they came in. They were like eye-opening. Said, you know, he said we have to change our approach. We have to be nice. We have to talk nicely to the girls. We have to be positive. You ever hear such a thing? Nope. So it's a different world. It's a different world. I spoke to a parent. This is one of those scary things. The kid is out of control. By all standards, the kid is out of control. Out of control. When you set fire to your father's clothing, that to me is like a certain red line. You know what I mean? You steal his laptop that he has all his information on. You know, whatever it is. You know, he's out of control. He's violent. He's crazy. You know. He had a meeting with the area, and the area said, "Listen, we can open a boutique. We can investigate it, but think first if you really want to do this." He said, "Well, I can't handle this kid." He says, "I understand. But if the kid turns around and says, you know, my parents hit me, that's it. They'll lock you up. You go to jail. It's against the law to hit your child." I'm talking about a potch. I'm not talking about beating him senseless. You know what I mean? And this kid made it clear. You know, I have a video on the phone. You know, if you give a potch to one of the kids, it's streaming to the next thing. So now you live in a society where there's no sense of respect, where there's no sense of family, there's no sense of anybody in charge. Go play by the rules. At the beginning of All for the Boss, she writes, "My father never kissed us. Father never kissed us. He felt that father has to maintain a certain distance." You know what I mean? I was the youngest. Occasionally I'd get a pinch of it. You know? Today, you're playing by different rules. The world has changed. There's no... Rabbi Wine tells a story when he was a kid in Chicago, 90 years ago, whatever it was, you know what I mean? He'd go to public school. So there were separate entrances for the men, for the boys and the girls, and you went, and you wore a tie, and you went like a match. I'm still old enough to remember when I was a kid in the public schools, you know, you would see, you'd see the kids who went to public school, they had to go, there was a dress code, how your hair had to be, and your socks, and your shoes, and your shirt, and your trousers, and you couldn't just go in any way you wanted. Today, it's all gone. It's all gone. There's nothing. There's no sense of respect. You know. So Baruch Hashem, we haven't lost everything in our world, but we have to understand the world is not the same world that we grew up in. And if we try to play with the same rules, we're going to bang our head against the wall. And I don't have to tell you, I don't know if anybody here has experience with this, but a lot of parents have become so frustrated because all they try to do is raise their kids the same way that they were raised. And times have changed. So, let's start at the beginning. I was at a Shabbaton, and Shabbos Mincha, the fellow who organized the Shabbaton, it was a collegiate Shabbaton, outreach Shabbaton. And the person who organized Shabbaton comes over to me, bubbling, and he says, Baruch Hashem, the Shabbaton is a big success. I said, really? Why? He says, well, we have a lot of students, and they're all having a great time. I said, was the purpose of the Shabbaton to bring together a lot of students and give them a good time? And he stops and he looks at me and he says, well, what should be the purpose of the Shabbaton? I said, Shabbos Mincha is the wrong time to ask that question. Sof ma'aseh machshav techilah. You know, I don't know if anybody here has ever had to work for somebody. I've had that experience on many occasions. I worked in one institution where I think I was the only employee. Everybody was my boss. You know what I mean? And sometimes you're working for somebody, and they sit down with you after you've been working yomim v'layla, and they say to you, I don't feel like you're doing your job.